female supervisor from another factory. And they transferred her to her factory so that she could spy on her, basically. She would follow her into all the bathrooms and, create more pressure on the other women. So it's really funny to hear her say that the men hired another woman to help them subjugate other women, basically.
তার কারণ ছিল মহিলাদের ওয়াশরুমে তো ছেলে লোক ঢুকতে পারবে না, মানে লাইনের ভিতর তো সব জায়গায় ছেলেরা যাইতে পারবে। আমি লাইনে কথা বলি বা সিঁড়িতে যে কথা বলি তখন তো ছেলে সুপারভাইজার যেতে পারে বা পিএম যেতে পারে বা সিকিউরিটি গার্ড, কিন্তু আমি যখন টয়লেটে যাবো তখন তো আমার সাথে সাথে কোনো পুরুষ টয়লেটে যেতে পারবে না, যার কারণে মহিলা সুপারভাইজারকে স্পেশাল ভাবে নিয়োগ দিচ্ছে যাতে আমাকে এই করতে পারে।
So this was specially done to monitor her in the bathrooms because the male officers could not follow her in there. They wanted to make sure that she was not secretly taking any more photos. So they hired another female supervisor.
Wow. I think we can pivot towards some other questions that we have in the Q&A section. If I could reiterate some towards you, Rubayat from Suban. She says, or he says, they say, thank you so much for making this powerful film. I have two questions. Was this film released in Bangladesh? And then two, why did you end the film that way? Do you think the last sequence could have ended in a different way with a more positive message?
Thank you for the question. The film is not released yet in Bangladesh. When we want to release a film in Bangladesh, we have to first go through the government censor board and obtain a censor certificate. And that's often a complicated process. And in this case, we were going to apply for the certificate in March when the lockdown began. So that work is halted, and I'm very hopeful that I will be able to release the film in Bangladesh, or also put it in some online platform where a lot of workers can access the film. And the reason why, there were so many places where I could have finished the movie, and there's so much that happened in Dalia's life when she actually registered the union. She became the union president. Then another chapter of her life started, that's a whole another story. But I wanted to freeze her in that moment, because for me, that's the moment when she changes as a woman, because in that room, she is able to flip the power structure. And he's a bureaucrat, he's an educated man, he's like the top tier society, and she's an uneducated girl who's worked her way up, and she's a young woman too. So the way she flips that power structure and she gets what she wants, I feel that she's changed as a woman forever. So I wanted to freeze her in that moment. And that's where we decided to end the film. Also leave it a little bit open-ended, that, it's going on. There's not a definitive end. Her struggle has not ended. The fight goes on. But the message is, if there is any, that she is a changed woman now.
Mm-hmm. There was also another quick question related to its distribution. Will the film be released on Netflix or Hulu? And I would say probably not. I'm not sure if I can answer that, because
I think that's a question for Artmat and the distributor to answer.
Yes, this film, Netflix in particular is very attached to very commercial films, and this film is a social commentary, and it is a strong message, and I'm afraid that Netflix is not interested in that type of work, which is a shame, but there's nothing we can do about it. Hulu, I don't know. We are still at the early stages of distribution of the film. We just started like on Friday, the virtual release. So eventually it will find its way on some mainstream streaming platform. At a minimum, it will be on, Amazon, if not on Netflix or Hulu, but that we are going to wait a little bit to put it there. Yeah. There was another question about the factories. I think people are curious a little bit about what's two things, if I may, Kat. The first one is, what percentage of the factories have been able to unionize? And then as a follow-up question, which is not there, but I think we need to talk about, is how has COVID impacted the work of the factories today?
Less than 10% of the factories are unionized. And as Dalia mentioned, the events that you see in the film are from 2013. That's when she registered her factory, the workers' union in her factory, and that was one of the first ones. And since Rana Plaza, the buyers, the government, the local factory owners, everybody started taking more notice because we lost so many lives. And as a result of that, after Rana Plaza, there has been a lot of registration of unions, but still it's less than 10%. And COVID, I just did a short documentary on this. More than $3.5 billion worth of order has been canceled out of Bangladesh. So the government, the workers, the factory owners, everybody is struggling to keep up with this. Because the way these large multinational fashion brands work is that they're able to pull out of a contract very last minute. The local factory owner might have produced all that material, but they can just pull out, which actually puts the economy of the country in a very difficult space.
Yeah, I think I just was reading today that the economy is starting to, a little bit, is starting again in Bangladesh. Is that true? Or?
Yes, it's true. Factories are opening up. They're trying to fight back, but then we're also losing life every day to COVID. But we do not have the luxury to stay at home. There's no stimulus checks coming like in other parts of the world. So people really have to go out and work. And these factory workers have really been in the front line.
Can you ask Daria, what were the actual specific improvements that came out as a result of her being able to unionize? That's another question that came up.
ডালিয়া আপা, আপনার জন্য প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে গিয়ে এই আপনার ইউনিয়ন করার পরে স্পেসিফিক্যালি কি কি ভালো জিনিস পাল্টে গিয়েছে বা কি কি ভালো জিনিস হয়েছে?
আসলে আমাদের ফ্যাক্টরি ছিল আগে আনকমপ্লায়েন্স। আমরা সর্বপ্রথম যে কাজটা করি সেটা হচ্ছে আমরা আমাদের ফ্যাক্টরি বরাবর একটা দাবিনামা দিই, 21 দফা একটা দাবি দিই। তো দাবিটা দেওয়ার পর ওখান থেকে আমরা আলোচনা বসতে চাই, কিন্তু মালিক বসতে চায় না। পরে আমরা আবার যেখান থেকে রেজিস্ট্রেশন পাইছি সরকার অফিসে আবার ওটা আমরা সাবমিট করি।
She submitted a 21-point demand to the factories. Her factory was initially a non-compliant factory. It means that it was not following safety measures. So after demanding the 21 points, they actually received them. They received all the safety measures and, all the things that workers have the right for. So that has started, and it has started in a lot of other factories as well.
ওই দাবিগুলোর ভিতরে আমরা রাখি ডে কেয়ার সেন্টার, তারপরে রাখি আমরা ম্যাটারনিটি লিভের টাকা, তারপরে আমরা রাখি যে ফায়ার সেফটি ট্রেনিং এর একটা পার্সেন্টেজ রাখি।
This includes stuff like maternity leave, fire safety training, and all that stuff. Yeah.
তারপরে আবার আমাদের যে অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স বোনাস ওটা ছিল কম, ওখানে আমরা 700 টাকা দাবি করি, তো ওটা 500 টাকায় আসে। তারপরে ডেকেয়ার সেন্টার বাচ্চা নাম ছিল কিন্তু বাচ্চা রাখতো না, বাচ্চার খাবার টাবার ওইসব নিয়ে আমরা দাবিনামাগুলো দিই এবং ওগুলো সবই আদায় হয়। আদায় হওয়ার পরে আমাদের ফ্যাক্টরিতে যে শ্রমিকরা ছিল, যাদের ছোট বাচ্চা ছিল, তারা ওই ডেকেয়ার সেন্টারে বাচ্চা রাখতো এবং বাচ্চার যে খাবার সেটা ওখান থেকেই পাইতো। তারপর হাজিরা বোনাস, ঈদ বোনাস, এই সবই আর কি আমরা ওই দাবিনামার মাধ্যমে কোম্পানি বরাবর আদায় করি। তো এক পর্যায়ে যেটা দেখা গেছে সেটা হচ্ছে সেই দাবিনামা অনুসারে বা সেই তুলনামূলক আগে যেভাবে জীবনযাপন করতো শ্রমিকরা, তার থেকে একটু ডেভেলপমেন্ট হয়েছে, কারণ একটু টাকা পয়সা বাড়ছে।
So this also included like a space for people with, workers with children to, like a daycare, basically. There was provision for a daycare, but it wasn't actually used. Children were not actually taken care for. So they actually demanded that, and they received it. And a lot of factories, there are daycare centers now. And also she mentioned that there was a bonus, attendance bonus. They asked for 700 taka, which I believe is not even $10, and they received 500 taka. It's a slight improvement, So the lives of the government, I mean, the garments factory workers have changed a little bit. The quality of life has increased a little bit.
Dalia, can you mention again some examples of the brands that the factory had that were clients of that factory that we might have heard of?
ডালিয়া আপা, আপনার ফ্যাক্টরিতে বড় বড় কি ক্লায়েন্ট ছিল বা ব্র্যান্ড ছিল একটু বলবেন?
H&M, Zara, Mango, Walmart, আরো অনেকগুলো ব্র্যান্ড ছিল, কিন্তু সব ব্র্যান্ডের নামগুলো এখন আমার মনে নাই। কিন্তু আমরা খুব ভালো ব্র্যান্ডের কাজ করতাম, আমরা কখনো নর্মাল ব্র্যান্ডের কাজ করতাম না। আর আমরা সবসময় যে অর্ডারটা থাকতো, আমরা সবসময় অর্ডারটা আগেই কমপ্লিট করে রাখতাম।
Our factory dealt with pretty mainstream brands. I don't think I need to translate that, but you can hear Zara, H&M, Walmart. So all the big ones. And they used to complete their orders before the delivery date, and they were very proper about it.
Thank you. To elaborate on a couple of follow-up questions in the chat, have major companies that benefit from the cheap labor at factories in Bangladesh contributed to the financial backing of this film?
No.
No.
Why would they?
A lot of work to be done. It's funny to me because even the maternity leave it's something to be desired here in the States as well. So just goes to show that there's a lot of inequality and imbalance in the capitalist system. Another question: how can consumers demand change from international brands to support better working conditions and worker rights? And then in the same vein, how do you suggest we help out the women working in factories from here in the US with the pay up movement rising? People have been talking about refraining from buying from these companies, but that will stop money from coming in completely. What do you suggest we do to support these women?
Well, there is not an easy answer. There's not just one thing that you can do, because these structures of inequalities have been built over decades. And they're very large large stakeholders in this process, global stakeholders. So one of the things that you should not definitely do is boycott, because when you boycott, you sort of shut the door on these workers who have been making your clothes, and all of a sudden you're aware and you stop buying, which actually lets them out of their job. They lose their job. That's not desirable. But as a consumer, you can be a more engaged consumer. You can try to go to the company's website and try to find out that do they list the factories that they work with. Because if it's transparent, they should be able to do that, and you should be able to actually check information online about how each factories are they employing safety measures, how much is each worker getting paid. And as a consumer, try to create that kind of pressure on these multinationals that I want this information. That's my right as a consumer. And also to support organizations. For example, Dalia was trained in a number of organizations before she became a union activist. So she was also trained through Solidarity Center, which was run from the funding by the US Embassy in Dhaka. She received training from 3F, which is the Danish Workers Union. So there's ActionAid, which is also another Danish NGO. They work extensively in Bangladesh. So try to find out what organization from your country is supporting education and training for workers, because that's, if you make a worker aware of their right, then they can actually fight for themselves.
Thank you. With that, let me take a moment here to also mention, for those of us who were directed from the Cinema Arts Center on Long Island, we had partnered with a local organization called Domestic Harmony Foundation. They provide support and resources for women victims of South Asian women victims of abuse and for empowerment. We are joined by Nilofer in the chat. I'm going to just paste in here their website for anyone who's interested, because I saw there was a question asking about this organization that we mentioned in our promotion for this film. And I encourage for everyone, if you'd like to continue asking questions in the chat, we're going to kind of start wrapping things up here. I would like to kind of segue into a follow-up question with for Dalia and Rubaiyat and Rahman is, you know, can you tell us a little bit about the post-film experience? You know, what has it been like after the film has finished and you know you're now promoting it, especially in the COVID world? It was the unionization, I understand, was in 2013. The film was made in 2018. And so leading up to now and the future, what's in store for you guys? What are your next projects or and stuff?
ডালিয়া পা, সো আমাদের ফাইনাল কোয়েশ্চেন হচ্ছে গিয়ে মুভিটা শেষ হওয়ার পরে, মুভির কাহিনীটা হলো 2013-তে, আমরা মুভিটা করলাম 2018-এ। সো এই মুভিটা শেষ করার পরে এখন আপনার কি অবস্থা, প্রমোশনের মধ্যে কেমন গেল, এবং আপনি ফিউচারে আপনি কি চিন্তা করছেন?
আসলে আমরা তো সবাই তো জানি যে 2013-র ঘটনা, কিন্তু আমরা 2018-তে এটা করছি। আর ওটা শেষে আমি জর্ডানে গেছিলাম, জর্ডানে প্রবাসী শ্রমিক হয়ে গেছিলাম। তো ওখানে আমি 6 মাসের মতন কাজ করে তারপর আবার রিটার্ন বাংলাদেশে আসি।
So after the film ended in 2018, we finished up shooting. She actually moved to Jordan as a migrant worker in an Indian-owned garments factory in Jordan. That she stayed there for 6 months, worked for them, and then she came back to promote the film even more.
তো ওখান থেকে আসার পরে আমি এর ভিতরে আবার বাংলাদেশে যে করোনা ভাইরাস শনাক্ত হয়, তার জন্য তো সবকিছুতে লকডাউন পড়ে যায়। আর এই করোনা ভাইরাসের জন্য তো বর্তমানে বাংলাদেশে গার্মেন্টস সেক্টরের অবস্থা খুবই খারাপ। শুধু যে গার্মেন্টস সেক্টর তা না, প্রত্যেকটা সেক্টরের অবস্থাই খারাপ। তো এর ভিতর থেকে সবাই খুব খারাপ অবস্থার ভিতর দিয়ে যাচ্ছে, আবার আমিও খারাপ অবস্থার ভিতর দিয়ে যাচ্ছি। আবার আমাদের দেশে বন্যা হয়, বন্যাতে আমাদের ঘর বাড়িও ভেঙে গেছে। তো মোটামুটি খুব খারাপ একটা ইয়ের ভিতর থেকে আমি দিন করতেছি। তবে আমি আশাবাদী যে এই করোনা ভাইরাস একদিন নির্মূল হবে, আবার সবকিছু আগের মতন স্বাভাবিক হবে। আর আমার চিন্তা ভাবনা সেটা হচ্ছে উন্নয়নমূলক কাজবাজ, সাংগঠনিক কাজবাজ আমি খুঁজতেছি করার জন্য।
Right. So after she came back, obviously the COVID shut down everything. Everything in Bangladesh was, closed off. So it was very hard for factory workers to deal with because they really depend on their wage, day-to-day wage, right? So she's went through a lot of struggles because of the COVID, because of everything being shut down. And also there's also a flooding problem in Bangladesh. And she also lost like her home in the flood. So it's quite a tough time for her, but she's hopeful that once the COVID is over, things will start back up again and the economy will be running. And she's also looking forward to working for more NGOs and organizations where she can continue her work as an activist.
And then Rubaiyat, can you elaborate a little bit on what's in the works, or I found it so interesting that Dalia continued to go to Jordan, and and then what we can you provide some kind of insight into what's going on even pre-COVID and post-COVID?
Sure. We premiered the film last year at TIFF in September, and then we released the film in Europe in December. So in November, Dalia and I were traveling together in Europe for 3 weeks. And that's when she was sharing a lot of stories about being a migrant worker in Jordan, which was very eye-opening for me. And that's when we decided that, okay, we're gonna make another film. It's a very, very ambitious project, and we have to raise the financing, and we never know if we actually will be successful or not, but we're committed to that, and we have become like a good team. And she, when she goes to work in these factories, she gains insight, which is not possible for me to access as a filmmaker. So when we team up, we can actually tell these unique stories. And so I'm really interested in seeing how cheap labor is being trafficked across the globe now. because Dalia was working in a factory in Jordan with women from Syria, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Bangladesh. So you could buy a t-shirt that says made in Jordan, but it could have been sewn by a woman from Nepal. So I'm really interested in discovering that story and trying to work on that. So that's what I'm looking forward to next.
Yeah, so what we have here is very interesting. It's not as simple as just, you know, the demand that, you know, these retailers have when we have, you know, India-owned companies moving their business from outside of somewhere like Bangladesh, where they now have new standards and are in fact moving ship to Jordan, where they don't have such, or Ethiopia, they don't have any of these standards to believe in, where it's kind of fresh and new. And it's amazing to me that, you know, you mentioned that, you know, it's very hard to protest for worker rights when you're not a citizen, when you're a migrant, right? So for example, in Jordan, if you're not Jordanian, what do you do in that case, right? And this is what we see now with basically human trafficking. We have here a question also: are there ways we can help finance the next project? So
that's great. Maybe we'll start a Kickstarter campaign. But I just like to add one thing, that something that Dalia shared with me when we were in Denmark is, you know, when she went to Jordan, one of the things is migrant workers don't speak the language. So they're already at a disadvantage. And she said one of the saddest thing that happened to her, that she was working on 1st of May and her friends in Bangladesh were doing rallies and outside, you know, celebrating that day, and she was working in the factory, and for her as a worker, she felt really bad that, you know, they didn't acknowledge that day. So you see how in Bangladesh, because things have improved, workers have become aware of their rights. Now the factories go elsewhere.
So we have some compliments and comments in the chat. I applaud each of you for your strength of character and generosity of spirit to help others. I hope that you can pass that on to Dalia. And then we have a suggestion here that this film be sent to the fashion syndicates to make them more aware of their exploitation of the Bangladesh economy.
I think they're completely aware. They know exactly what's happening.
Yes.
And yeah. So I think there's like, the problem is exploitation of labor. It's not if you're choosing to buy, you know, H&M or Zara, go to Zara and don't pick the $3 tops. Buy their $10 top. I don't know. Maybe start from there, but it's more complicated than just letting people know. They know, they're aware. It's an exploitation problem. And it's not like a demand supply problem. Sorry to interject.
No, it's you know, really quite a beast, and I'm just you know, it doesn't end here. I am heartened to hear that there's perhaps another project in the works, and you know, with Dalia's insight and something of a sequel, perhaps, Rubaiyat, and perhaps with you, Novera.
Rubaiyat Tapa has very graciously written me into the next script. We'll see how, you know, where it goes if we actually end up shooting it. Yeah, but I would love to continue the story of Dalia and Shimu and see where they finally end up.
I think we have addressed almost all of the questions. Tiara, shall we wrap up?
Yes, unless there's a, do you have anything you wanted to add? You know, like share with the audience. We have about 40 people who have been listening to this conversation, and we'll have people listening later on when we post on Facebook. And so this is your chance to send a message if you want to about the film and about supporting the next project as well.
ডালিয়া আপা, অনেকগুলো কমপ্লিমেন্ট আসছে আমাদের কমেন্টসের এখানে। আপনি কি অডিয়েন্সের সাথে কোনো কিছু শেয়ার করতে চান?
আমাদের মুভিটা তো আমেরিকাতে রিলিজ হচ্ছে অনলাইনে, এটা তো অবশ্যই সবাই দেখবে। আমেরিকাতে তো অবশ্যই আমাদের বাংলাদেশ সেক্টরে যে পোশাকগুলো তৈরি হয় সেগুলো অবশ্যই যায়, তারা তো অবশ্যই পরিধান করে।
Yeah, so she's excited for the release in USA, especially because all the brands that she has worked for and all the Bangladeshi community that's present in the USA, and they'll be able to see the film. So yeah, basically she's inviting everybody in US to see the film.
তো তারা যেসব ব্র্যান্ডের পোশাকগুলো ক্রয় করে এবং পরিধান করে তাদের আসলে একটা রিকোয়েস্ট করবো যে আপনারা এই পোশাকগুলো কেনার আগে অবশ্যই একটু জাস্টিফাই করবেন যে এই পোশাকগুলো যেখানে তৈরি হয় ওখানে ওই শ্রমিকগুলো ন্যায্য যে পাওনাদি যে মূল্য সেটা পায়, যদি সেটা না পায় অবশ্যই তারা যাতে একটু প্রতিবাদ করে।
Oops.
I think they had a power cut.
Yeah.
I'll just translate. Dalia said that because so many brands that she has worked for are from the US, and there are so many consumers in the US, so she's requesting that for the consumers to be more aware and to be more interested in the women who are making their clothes and try to find out that are these women being paid for their work. And if I may add something, I'd really like to say that for me as a woman, it was very empowering making this film and knowing Dalia and knowing other workers. And it's we have become like a family. We had a very strong team and really like to continue going on. The producers that I worked with are committed in supporting the sequel. The actors are interested, so it's just going to be a matter of time before we do this. But I'm very grateful for this journey because I never imagined that the collaboration between me and Dalia would go so well, that we would go on becoming friends and we would go on wanting to tell these stories, which actually also empowers us as women in our personal lives.
Wonderful. And so somebody is asking again how to watch the film online. So you can go to the website Made in Bangladesh, and there are many theaters showing the film. So you can just select the movie theater you would like to support. And then 50% of the proceeds from the ticket sales will go to the theater, because as you know, with COVID, a lot of independent theaters that you typically show those type of films have also been hit hard, and so that's one way for them to find a little bit of financial support to operate. So when you watch the film, you support the filmmaker, you support the theater, you support the distributor, and you're exposed to really a very important and well told story. So it's on the website. The website is Made in Bangladesh movie.com. I just added it to the chat. And please share the information with your friends. We just started it. It's going to be available for at least the entire month of August, for sure. I'm sorry, September. August is over.
If I may add something, that if you'd like to help us, you can go to Rotten Tomato and write us a review. We don't have user reviews, so it would be great if you take a moment to write a review about if you like the film, because these things go a long way in helping us make the next movie. And definitely go and watch the film. This is a really bad time for independent cinema, so support those cinemas.
Yeah.
As you can see, Novera and Dalia have just returned. Welcome back. We were just kind of thanking you guys again for joining us. It's been a really wonderful insight into a really important story. So thank you for sharing your story and telling it so well. We're really encouraged by it. This is maybe sort of any last words again, Dalia and Novera?
Yeah, I would just like to finish what Dalia was saying.
Yes.
She's imploring everybody to become a more engaged consumer, the thing that Rubaida also touched on. Make sure that when you're buying from a brand, try to find out if the workers are getting paid properly, or if their factory is a compliance factory or not, and maybe adjust your demand according to that. The secret is being an engaged consumer. So thank you.
And I also think that, when we talk about consumerism, I think when you want new clothes every season, that's when you create this structure of cheap clothes and fast labor. So I think it's also like for us to really know that when we have so much greed and we want to buy a lot of clothes, it also hurts somebody on the other end. So it's important to also be more mindful of, to know that what you buy is made by somebody. It's just not hanging on a rack miraculously. Some hard labor went into that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rubayat, Novera, Dalia, Kat. Thank you all for joining in this discussion. And thank you for all of our audience that joined us for this chat. We're going to wrap it up. It's late. It's very early, by the way. It's early in the morning in Bangladesh. So they woke up very early to be with us. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time. And please share the film, share the news, write the reviews for Rotten Tomato. It's 100% critics, 100%. So that's congratulations again, Rubayat. We're really proud to distribute this film.
Thank you. Thank you for supporting the film.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye. Good morning.